The NIGMA Empire had crossed the quiet black of space for centuries. Their ships were enormous and bright, with smooth silver hulls that reflected the glow of distant stars. They had visited many worlds before and thought they knew every type of civilization. When their fleet entered the solar system, they believed they would find nothing more than another small planet to add to their list of contacts. The lead vessel slowed near the orbit of Mars. Hundreds of long-range sensors stretched out like invisible fingers. The readings told them about Earth's atmosphere, oceans, land masses, and energy signals. The NIGMA commanders shared the data with smiles, certain that the blue-green planet was home to a young and unthreatening people. Earth noticed them at once. Tracking stations in low orbit picked up the sudden arrival of massive ships beyond Mars. Observatories followed the fleet as it moved inward. On every continent, government leaders received updates in urgent tones. It was not the first time. Humanity had seen visitors from the stars, but never before had they come in such numbers. Within hours, a message from the NIGMA flagship reached Earth. The voice was calm and measured, introducing the Empire as a great and old civilization from the far reaches of the spiral arm. They spoke of peaceful intentions and mutual curiosity. The message ended with a request to meet and share knowledge. In the United Earth Council chamber, representatives debated the offer. Some believed the NIGMA could be trusted. Others were not so sure. History had taught humanity that power often came with hidden motives. After careful discussion, Earth replied with an invitation for a formal meeting on the neutral ground of the Luna Conference Hall, a vast structure built inside a transparent dome on the moon's surface. Days later, the NIGMA delegation landed in a sleek shuttle shaped like a long tear of silver metal. The craft touched down gently on the moon's port, and a walkway extended toward the glass dome. Inside the hall, human diplomats waited in simple but formal attire. Flags from all nations hung in neat lines along the curved walls. The NIGMA envoys entered with a slow, confident stride. They were tall and slender, with deep green skin and eyes that seemed to reflect light like polished stones. Their clothing was made from layered fabrics that shimmered when they moved. Every step and gesture appeared carefully measured, as if they were always performing for an audience. The first exchanges were polite. The NIGMA praised Earth's blue oceans, rich forests, and the unique beauty of its moonlit cities. They spoke of possible trade and cultural exchange. The humans returned the courtesy, offering to share art, music, and history. But beneath the pleasant words, both sides watched each other closely. When the opening ceremony ended, a smaller private discussion began. The human lead scientist, Dr. Mara, brought up a matter of concern. She explained that Earth's instruments had detected an unusual and powerful energy anomaly moving slowly through nearby space. It was not natural. Its path suggested it would pass dangerously close to the inner planets within weeks. She shared charts, graphs, and three-dimensional simulations. The reading showed the anomaly was growing in strength, and its effects on technology were unpredictable. Earth's experts had run dozens of tests, and all agreed that without preparation, many systems could fail when the wave passed. The NIGMA commander listened, but did not seem worried. He leaned back in his seat, studying the human faces with a hint of amusement. His advisors murmured softly among themselves before he finally replied. He thanked Dr. Mara for the information, but assured her that the NIGMA Empire had faced countless space phenomena before. Their ships were built with advanced protection systems, and their technology, in his words, was far beyond anything a young world like Earth could imagine. To them, the warning seemed unnecessary. Mara tried again, pointing out that Earth's data came from direct observation of the phenomenon. She explained how its energy signature did not match any known event in the NIGMA records, and that its unpredictable frequency could bypass standard defenses. The commander gave a small, polite smile and said they appreciated Earth's concern, but would continue their mission without changing plans. The NIGMA fleet would survey the asteroid belt, scan resource-rich moons, and map nearby space routes as intended. The meeting ended with formal handshakes and carefully chosen words, but the tension lingered. As the NIGMA shuttles departed the moon, Earth's leaders gathered again. They were not surprised by the dismissal. The Empire had arrived with pride in its history and confidence in its technology. Many on the Council suspected that only proof from the coming event would change their view. Back on their flagship, the NIGMA commander spoke of Earth as a capable but inexperienced partner. They admired the planet's rapid development and unity, but saw the warning as an overreaction. In their long travels, they had seen young civilizations fear harmless shadows. In space, they believed this was no different. Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations quietly began. Engineers worked on reinforcing the orbital shield network. Energy storage stations on the surface began receiving upgrades. Communication satellites were fitted with additional shielding. These steps were not shared in detail with the NIGMA, as Earth's Council agreed that the Empire's dismissal made open cooperation unlikely. High above the planet, the quiet hum of industry filled the void. Massive shield plates glinted in sunlight as they were moved into place. In underground command centers, teams monitored the anomaly's progress with calm but focused attention. The readings confirmed it was still growing, from the windows of their ships. The NIGMA saw these movements and assumed they were standard military drills. They spoke among themselves about how impressive the humans were in organizing such large-scale work so quickly. None of them guessed it was all in response to the very danger they had ignored. The solar system seemed peaceful. Stars glittered over the black horizon, and planets moved in their patient orbits. Yet a quiet clock had started ticking toward the moment when Earth's warning would be tested. The NIGMA fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Their ships glided through the dark space between Mars and the asteroid belt. On board the flagship, the commander, Vorin, sat in his chair at the center of a large control room. Tall displays surrounded him, each showing scans, star maps, and reports from other vessels. Vorin was proud of his empire's record. For hundreds of years they had traveled between stars, making deals, building stations, and mapping unclaimed regions. To him, Earth's warning was nothing more than the nervous reaction of a young people unused to the greater currents of space. His second officer, Taral, stepped forward with a new set of readings. They came from NIGMA scanners, which had been tracking the energy anomaly mentioned by Earth's scientists. Terrell reported that the readings did show a strong source of energy moving toward the inner system. However, its structure seemed unstable, which made it appear weak to their instruments. Vorin nodded and said it was likely a harmless burst from a dying star or a remnant of a distant explosion. He told his officers that NIGMA shielding had faced stronger forces many times without trouble. Around the room, the crew nodded in agreement. Far away on Earth, Dr. Mara and her team compared their data with the limited readings the NIGMA had shared. Her conclusion was clear. The anomaly was not weakening. it was growing. She sent another formal message to the NIGMA flagship, this time including fresh simulations. The new model showed that if the wave's energy peaked as predicted, it could cause massive power disruptions to any unshielded structure or vessel in its path. The reply from the NIGMA came hours later. It was brief and formal. They thanked Earth again for the concern, but saw no reason to adjust their mission. Inside the Luna conference hall, the United Earth Council gathered to discuss the message. The representatives looked over Mara's data. They agreed that while they could not force the NIGMA to act, they would keep their own preparations moving at full speed. In their view, readiness was the only responsible path. Meanwhile, the NIGMA fleet spread out into several groups. Some ships began detailed surveys of large asteroids. Others sent drones to moons around Jupiter and Saturn. The Empire's science. Teams were busy collecting mineral samples, scanning deep caverns, and mapping regions for future resource extraction. On the NIGMA exploration ship Solari, a young science officer named Rilan studied the anomaly in his spare time. He was curious about the human warning and wanted to understand it better. His personal scans showed strange patterns in the wave's energy field, patterns that did not match known natural events. When he tried to bring his findings to his captain, the response was polite but dismissive. The captain reminded him that the fleet had strict schedules, and there was no reason to waste time on a harmless phenomenon. Ryland decided to keep recording data quietly. He felt there was something unusual about the way the wave moved, almost as if it was being guided or shaped by forces beyond simple physics. On Earth, public news networks showed images of the NIGMA ships in orbit around far-off moons. Commentators debated whether the Empire's calm attitude meant there was nothing to fear, or if it meant they were ignoring a real danger. In cities, people continued with daily life, but in research facilities and command stations, work on the SHIELD network became more urgent. At the International Orbital Yard, huge panels of reflective alloy were built in sections, lifted into orbit, and locked into position. Each panel was designed to deflect and absorb high-energy particles. Crews worked in rotating shifts, so construction never stopped. From their vantage point near the asteroid belt, NIGMA survey teams sometimes saw the glint of new human structures rising in orbit. They commented on how quickly Earth could build, when united under a single goal. Some even suggested that the Empire could benefit from such focused teamwork. Still, none of them connected this activity to the warning they had dismissed. As the days passed, the anomaly grew brighter in long range. Images. Earth's instruments detected a steady rise in energy output. Dr. Mara's team updated their predictions and confirmed the timeline. The wave would enter the inner system in less than 3 weeks. The United Earth Council sent one final warning to the NIGMA commander. This time, it was not only a scientific report but also a clear statement that any vessels near the path should either shield themselves or move to safe positions. The message ended by saying that Earth would take no responsibility for damage to ships that ignored the advice. Vorin read the message and found it bold. In his view, it was unusual for such a young civilization to speak so directly to a power as old as the NIGMA Empire. Still, he did not feel insulted. Instead, he saw it as a sign of pride. He responded with thanks, but assured them once more that the NIGMA fleet was fully capable of handling itself. Rilan, the young officer, read the official reply and felt uneasy. He noticed that Earth's message did not sound like fear. It sounded like certainty. It was as if they had already accepted that the wave was coming and were speaking from a place of preparation rather than panic. He continued his private observations. Each day, the energy wave's readings became more irregular, with sudden spikes and drops. These changes made it even less predictable. He stored his findings in a hidden file on his personal console, unsure if he would ever be allowed to act on them. Out among the asteroids, NIGMA mining drones worked without pause. The fleet's transports collected valuable ores, scanning each load for purity. Crews talked about returning home with their cargo, certain the mission would be remembered as a success. The anomaly was rarely mentioned in casual conversation. On Earth, however, the topic never left the minds of those in charge. Satellite networks ran constant diagnostics. Power grids were tested against simulated surges. Evacuation plans were updated for vulnerable stations in orbit. The preparations were not born of fear, but of responsibility. As the second week ended, the anomaly's glow became visible to high-grade NIGMA sensors without special filters. It appeared as a swirling patch of light against the black of space, still far but approaching steadily. The NIGMA crews saw it and admired its beauty, speaking of it as if it were a passing wonder of nature. On Earth, the same image was met with tightened plans and longer work shifts. The difference between the two reactions was clear. One side saw a harmless light, the other saw a silent storm moving toward them. The third week began with an unusual sight in the night skies over Earth. In remote observatories and on quiet hillsides, astronomers noticed a faint glow in the outer edges of the solar system. At first, it was barely visible even through strong telescopes. But each day, the glow grew brighter. It did not blink like a star or move like a comet. It swirled as if made of streams of light twisting around one another. In the control room of the United Earth Observatory, Dr. Mara stood before a wall of screens. The anomaly's latest images filled the largest display. Numbers scrolled down one side, showing rising energy levels. On another screen, a graph displayed a curve that climbed higher every day. Mara's team worked in silence except for the sound of keys tapping and quiet conversations. The data confirmed that the wave was moving exactly as predicted. It would pass through the inner solar system in less than 10 days. The problem was not its speed, but its size. It was far larger than earlier estimates. If unshielded, a single station could lose all power in seconds. Meanwhile, the NIGMA fleet continued their operations without change. They were mapping mineral-rich asteroids and storing samples in large cargo bays. To them, the glow in the distance was simply another cosmic event, one of many they had seen across the galaxy. From the observation deck of the NIGMA flagship, the commander Vorin looked at the light through a panoramic window. "It is beautiful," Vorin said to his officers. "In a few days it will pass us by and fade into memory." His officers agreed, speaking in calm tones about how strange and peaceful the galaxy could be. None of them discussed the human warning, which now felt like a minor detail in their mission log. On the exploration ship Solar, the young science officer Rylan was still tracking the anomaly in his private time. His scans revealed sudden bursts of energy in patterns that reminded him of solar flares, but the direction of the bursts did not match any natural rotation. It was as if the wave's energy was twisting inwards toward its own center. This made no sense in his training. Rylan approached his captain again, showing him the recorded bursts. The captain glanced at them and said the readings were interesting but probably meaningless. He reminded Rylan that the fleet's energy shields were among the strongest in known space. Rylan wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. Instead, he saved all the data on his personal console and kept silent. On Earth, news channels began to show the anomalies glow in the night sky. For most citizens, it was a distant curiosity. For scientists and leaders, it was a reminder that their timeline was short. The shield arrays around the planet were now almost complete. Engineers tested the systems daily, sending bursts of energy through the panels and measuring how they absorbed the force. At the Lunar Shield Command Center, rows of operators sat before glowing screens. They monitored satellites and orbital stations, checking for any signs of weakness. The air was filled with the steady hum of equipment and the soft voices of crews reporting numbers. From here, they could activate every shield on Earth, and in orbit within minutes. The NIGMA Empire received Earth's public broadcasts as part of open space communication. Some in the fleet laughed softly at the human preparations, thinking it was all too much for what they saw as a passing light. A few, however, began to wonder if the humans knew something the Empire had not yet considered. Rylan was one of those few. Each day, he compared his own readings with the public data Earth had shared weeks earlier. The match was almost exact. It was clear to him that the humans had understood the nature of the wave long before it was visible to the naked eye. This unsettled him, because it meant their science was not as primitive as many in the Empire believed. Back on Earth, Dr. Mara gave a final briefing to the United Earth Council. She spoke plainly, saying that the shields would hold if activated in time, but any delay could cause serious damage to satellites, stations, and ships. The Council approved her plan to go into full readiness mode 3 days before the wave's arrival. In the outer system, automated NIGMA drones passed through the edge of the anomaly's influence. The readings they sent back showed temporary disruptions in their systems. For a few seconds, their signals grew weak before stabilizing again. The data reached Voron's flagship, but the commander dismissed it as interference from distant radiation belts. The glow in the sky was now bright enough that even without telescopes, it could be spotted from Earth's darker regions. In the far northern territories, children pointed at the swirling patch and called it a new star. On the moon, the glow lit the glass dome of the Luna Conference Hall in a faint silver light. On the Solare, Rylan decided to take a risk. He sent a quiet, private message to a human science station in lunar orbit. In it, he attached his scans and noted the strange bursts in the anomaly's energy pattern. He asked if these matched human observations. He did not know if the message would be received or if his identity would be discovered, but he felt it was worth the risk. The reply came within hours. It was short but clear. The human scientist thanked him and confirmed that their own scans matched his. The bursts meant the wave's peak strength could be higher than predicted, making shielding even more important. Rylan stared at the message for a long time. He now knew for certain that Earth's warning was real. What troubled him more was that no one in the fleet seemed ready to hear it. In the final days before the wave's arrival, Earth's shields began low-power tests that lit up the night sky with faint green arcs. Citizens in cities paused to watch, wondering if they were seeing the future of planetary defense. In space, human stations adjusted orbits to stay within shield coverage. The NIGMA fleet made no such changes. To them, the beauty of the glow was a passing wonder. To Earth, it was the face of an approaching storm. The wave was now only days away. From space, the anomaly no longer looked like a faint glow. It had grown into a vast, shimmering cloud of light that spread across a large section of the sky. Swirls of blue, silver, and pale gold twisted together in patterns that shifted every hour. On Earth, the sight was both beautiful and unsettling. People gathered on rooftops and in open fields to watch it after sunset. News reports described it as the largest energy event seen in the solar system. In recorded history, scientists reminded the public that while the shields would protect them, the coming days would be critical. At the United Earth Shield Command, the atmosphere was intense but orderly. Operators worked in pairs at long rows of consoles. They monitored shield generators on the surface and in orbit. Large screens showed the positions of each shield satellite as glowing points of light around the planet. Dr. Mara walked through the control center, speaking with engineers and technicians. She checked power reserves, reviewed shield response times, and confirmed that all emergency systems were ready. Her voice was calm, but her eyes moved quickly, catching every small detail. 3 days before the wave's arrival, the Council authorized the full activation plan. The shield satellites began to align into precise formations. On the surface, massive power plants diverted energy into storage units that would feed the shields when the wave struck. In orbit, construction crews finished securing the last of the reflective alloy panels. These panels, arranged like a shell around key stations, would serve as the first barrier against the wave's high-energy particles. Once in place, the panels locked together with a faint hum, forming a shield wall that glittered in the sunlight. In the Lunar Shield Station, Commander Wren oversaw the activation sequence. From his observation deck, he could see the entire moon's surface, and beyond it, Earth glowing blue against the black of space. Above the planet, the shield network's curved lines shimmered faintly. It looked fragile from a distance, but Wren knew the technology had been tested against powerful bursts before. Meanwhile, the NIGMA fleet continued its mission without major changes. Vorin and his officers were confident in their own defenses. They ran standard maintenance on their energy shields and made minor adjustments to their patrol routes. Mining drones kept working in the asteroid belt, collecting valuable ores for transport. From the NIGMA perspective, Earth's actions seemed excessive. To them, the humans were treating the event like a war rather than a simple space phenomenon. Crews aboard NIGMA ships discussed Earth's shield network with a mix of respect and amusement. Some wondered how much energy the humans were wasting on what they believed was an overreaction. Rylan, however, saw things differently. He had continued to study the wave's patterns in secret. His private readings showed that the bursts of energy within the wave were growing sharper and more frequent. He compared his data with the reply he had received from the human scientists days earlier. The match was exact. On his next break, Rylan stood at the observation window of the Solar. The swirling light of the anomaly was now bright enough to reflect on the silver hulls of nearby NIGMA ships. He imagined what would happen if their shields failed in the middle of the storm. The thought left him uneasy. Back on Earth, the final rehearsals for shield activation began. At the exact moment signaled by Dr. Mara, operators triggered a controlled power surge through the shield network. The panels lit up with a soft green glow, then faded back to near invisibility. The test was successful, and the system's stability. Reading stayed in the safe zone. Citizens around the world saw the faint green arcs in the night sky. For many, It was the first visible sign that the shields were real. The sight brought both reassurance and curiosity. Children pointed at the sky, while adults shared quiet conversations about what the next days might bring. On the moon, the Luna Conference Hall stood empty. The NIGMA envoys had returned to their ships after the last diplomatic meeting. Inside, the glass dome, rows of seats faced an empty stage. Above, the swirling anomaly cast shifting shadows across the floor. 2 days before the wave's arrival, the anomaly's edge began to reach the farthest NIGMA probes. The data they sent back showed brief energy fluctuations in their systems. On one probe, the communication signal dropped for a full minute before returning. The incident was logged, but no emergency measures were taken. On Earth, the same data triggered an immediate council meeting. Dr. Mara explained that the energy surges hitting the probes were only the outer edge of the wave. The main body was far stronger. If unshielded systems were already experiencing disruption, the full impact could be far worse for ships without advanced protection. The Council decided to send one final open broadcast to all vessels in the inner system. The message did not name the NIGMA directly, but warned that all unshielded craft should either move behind planetary defenses or activate maximum energy protection. Rylan heard the broadcast while on duty. He looked around the control room of the Solar, but none of the officers reacted. The captain continued issuing mining orders, and the crew kept working as if the message had never been sent. That night, Rylan could not sleep. He sat at his console, staring at the growing light of the anomaly through the ship's window. In less than 48 hours, the wave would be upon them. He thought about sending another message to the humans, but decided against it. It was too late for words to change much now. On Earth, the hours passed with steady preparation. Shield power levels were kept just below maximum to conserve energy for the moment of impact. Engineers rotated in and out of duty to avoid fatigue. Medical teams stood ready in case of accidents. Above the planet, the shield network floated in perfect formation. From a distance, it looked like a faint silver ring around Earth, but each panel held enough stored energy to repel massive forces. On the final night before the wave, the anomaly filled a quarter of the sky from the perspective of the outer planets. Its colors shifted rapidly now, flashing brighter with each passing hour. The edge of the storm would reach Mars by sunrise. On the Solare, Rylan stood alone at the observation deck, watching the spectacle. The light danced across the hull of the ship and reflected in his eyes. He could feel the deep hum of the engines through the floor, steady and strong. But he knew that in a day, the wave would test every shield, every system, and every assumption the NIGMA had made. Far away on Earth, Dr. Mara watched the same light from the top of the shield command tower. The glow reached across the night, bathing the landscape in pale silver. She took a slow breath and turned back to her team. There was nothing left to prepare. The next step would be to face the storm. The day of the wave's arrival began quietly. In the early hours, the solar system seemed still and calm. Earth rotated beneath clear skies in many regions, and the moon's surface lay silent and bright. Yet every station, control room, and ship on the human side was fully awake. The shield network was already running at near full strength, glowing faintly in the upper atmosphere like a thin ring of green light. From the outer system came the first reports. Automated probes orbiting Jupiter and Saturn recorded sudden bursts of high-energy particles. A moment later, one probe lost its signal entirely. The other two showed rapid power drain before falling silent. These were the first pieces of evidence that the wave was no harmless light. In the United Earth Shield Command, Dr. Mara read the incoming data. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the numbers climb faster than her models had predicted. She activated the final stage of the defense plan, ordering all shields to maximum output. Across the planet and in orbit, massive generators roared as energy surged into the shield network. On the NIGMA flagship, Vorin received the same probe data, but did not call for full alert. Instead, he instructed his officers to monitor systems and stand ready to adjust shield strength if necessary. The Empire's ships remained scattered across the inner system, continuing mining and surveying operations. 1 hour later, the wave's outer edge reached the first NIGMA patrol ships near the asteroid belt. Inside the patrol's control room, lights flickered. Panels buzzed with static. For a few seconds, the ship's gravity control shifted, causing crew members to stumble. The captain ordered the shields to increase power, but the energy levels rose too slowly to match the wave's intensity. The humans detected the same disturbance. Earth's shield network flared brighter as it absorbed the initial surge. A faint shimmer rippled across the green arcs above the planet. From the ground, the sky looked like it was covered by a thin sheet of moving glass. In orbit around Earth, crews aboard human stations felt only a mild vibration as the wave passed through the outer layers of the shields. Lights dimmed for less than a second before returning to normal. The system was holding. But out in space, the NIGMA fleet began to struggle. The Solar was among the ships hit hardest. Rylan gripped the side of his console as the deck shook beneath him. Readouts flashed. Warnings in red. Power to several systems dropped by half, and a deep hum filled the air as the engines tried to maintain stability. "Shields at maximum," the captain shouted, but the tone of his voice no longer carried the same certainty. The wave's energy bursts were hitting faster than the shield could fully recover between impacts. Across the NIGMA fleet, similar scenes unfolded. Some ships lost external sensors. Others saw communication links fail without warning. In the flagship's command room, Vorin ordered emergency protocols for all vessels, but by then, several smaller ships had already gone silent. On Earth, Mara received confirmation that NIGMA vessels were experiencing heavy disruptions. She ordered the rescue fleet to prepare for launch as soon as the wave's main body passed. Her voice was steady, but the room could feel the weight of the decision. Tatur. Next stage of the wave arrived like an unseen tide. Energy levels spiked to their peak, flooding the inner system. For a few tense seconds, the shield network over Earth blazed bright green, almost too bright to look at. Generators pushed their limits, but the power flow stayed stable. In orbit, the panels absorbed the impact, glowing hot before cooling again. The NIGMA ships without full readiness fared worse. The Solar lost navigation for nearly a full minute, drifting in a slow spin until backup systems engaged. In some vessels, interior lights went dark, replaced by the dim glow of emergency strips along the walls. Rylan could hear the strain in the voices around him. Officers spoke quickly, trying to keep systems online. He realized then that the humans had been right from the start. Their warning had not been an overreaction. It had been the truth. When the main body of the wave finally began to pass, the damage was clear. Several NIGMA ships reported complete loss of long-range communication. Mining drones were drifting uncontrolled. Cargo bays had sealed themselves after detecting shield breaches in their outer walls. In contrast, Earth's network stood firm. Minor fluctuations had occurred, but the shields had done their work. Power grids on the surface showed only brief interruptions in a few regions. Civilian life continued with minimal disruption. Once the worst was over, Mara gave the command for rescue operations to begin. Human ships launched from orbital stations and lunar ports, heading toward the damaged NIGMA vessels. Each rescue ship carried repair teams, portable shield generators, and large stores of emergency supplies. On the Solar, Ryland stood at the observation deck as a small human rescue craft approached. Its hull was simple, built for function rather than beauty, but its movements were confident and precise. The docking sequence began without delay, and within minutes human engineers stepped aboard with quiet efficiency. The captain of the Solare greeted them with formal thanks, but there was no pride in his tone. The crew knew they had been wrong to dismiss the warning. Without the humans' shields and assistance, the damage could have been far worse. On the flagship, Vorin listened to reports from across the fleet. His voice was steady, but his expression had changed. The loss of function in several ships and the dependency on human rescue efforts could not be ignored. He gave orders to fully cooperate with Earth's assistance teams. As the wave's tail end drifted past, the shimmering light in the sky began to fade. The once bright swirls dimmed into a soft glow before disappearing into the distance. The danger had passed, but the memory of it would remain. On Earth, the green arcs of the shield network dimmed and vanished as the generators powered down. In cities across the planet, people stepped outside to see the night sky return to normal. The event had been unlike anything they had witnessed, and they would speak of it for generations. In space, the rescue and repair efforts continued. Human and NIGMA crews worked side by side, replacing damaged circuits, stabilizing engines, and restoring lost systems. It was slow work, but it was also a bridge between the two civilizations. Ryland, now assisting the repair crews, knew that this event had changed the way the NIGMA saw Earth. The Empire had learned a lesson written in the silent language of survival. Days passed since the wave had passed, and the solar system slowly returned to normal. On Earth, life went back to routines that felt familiar, but the memory of the event lingered. Citizens walked through streets with cautious eyes, sometimes glancing upward at the clear sky, remembering the green arcs of the shield network that had protected them. At the United Earth Shield Command, Dr. Mara oversaw post-event analysis. Data streamed from all satellites, surface generators, and orbital stations. Engineers worked around the clock to check every circuit, every shield panel, and every energy conduit. While the shields had held, Mara knew that lessons had to be learned. The system must be stronger for the future. On the moon, Luna Station hummed with activity. Human crews worked side by side with NIGMA engineers who had arrived with their damaged ships. At first, there was tension in the air. Some NIGMA officers had never interacted closely with humans before. They had been confident in their own power, and now they had to rely on those they once thought weak. Ryland walked among the repair crews, observing both species at work. Humans moved with precision and patience, passing tools and instructions. Clearly, NIGMA engineers were skilled, but unfamiliar with human methods. Slowly, mutual respect began to grow. A human engineer showed a NIGMA officer how to quickly repair a small energy conduit, and the officer nodded in appreciation. Vorin, aboard the flagship, watched as his fleet was gradually restored. The losses had been serious but not catastrophic. The Empire's pride had suffered more than its ships. He had issued new orders to fully cooperate with Earth's forces until all repairs were complete. "Survival is more important than pride," he told his officers. The words were simple, but their meaning carried weight across the fleet. Every officer knew that the near disaster had changed the way the NIGMA Empire would view humans from now on. On Earth, the Council held a formal meeting with representatives from every major nation. They discussed the event in detail, reviewing the shield's performance and the coordination with orbiting stations. Dr. Mara spoke calmly, pointing to graphs and projections that showed how the wave had affected the inner system. "Without full shield activation," she said, "the outcome could have been far worse. We must continue to improve, but our efforts have proven that cooperation, preparation, and trust in science save lives." Her words were met with nods and quiet applause. Meanwhile, human rescue and repair crews worked tirelessly in orbit. Ships carried spare parts, energy cells, and food supplies to NIGMA vessels still recovering from the wave. Rylan and a small team of humans worked on the Solar, repairing damaged communication arrays. During one break, Rylan stepped onto the observation deck. The solar system appeared calm and bright. Earth glowed blue below, and the sun reflected off distant planets and moons. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. The danger had passed, but he knew the event would not be forgotten. Back on the Solar, a NIGMA officer approached him. "Your shield saved many of us," the officer said. His tone was respectful, free of the earlier arrogance. Rylan nodded. "We only did what was necessary to protect life," he replied. "Next time, it may not be just your fleet or ours. We must all be prepared." The officer looked at him and understood. Cooperation, not competition, would be their strength in the future. On the surface of Earth, people returned to daily life. Children played in parks while adults went to work. Yet conversations often turned to the Wave and the NIGMA fleet. News channels showed images of repaired ships and reports from Luna Station. Citizens discussed the importance of being ready for the unexpected. Dr. Mara visited one of the shield generator stations outside a major city. She walked among the engineers, checking each system. The hum of the power lines and the gentle glow of energy panels reassured her. The shields had performed perfectly, but she knew that resting on this success alone would be dangerous. "We must continue to learn," she said to the engineers. "The universe is full of forces we may not yet understand. Preparedness is our greatest defense." The engineers nodded, inspired by her dedication. Far beyond Earth, the NIGMA Empire began to reconsider its strategies. Fleet commanders held discussions about how to prevent future near disasters. They recognized the value of observation, of listening to others, and of respecting knowledge outside their own systems. Rylan watched as small signs of change appeared. Orders now included cooperation drills with human crews. Technical manuals were being translated between species. A small cultural exchange program was even proposed, aiming to foster understanding between humans and NIGMA officers. On Luna Station, human and NIGMA crews shared meals in the cafeteria. Laughter and conversation filled the air as teams recounted moments from the wave and repairs. The memory of fear had not disappeared, but it was now tempered by the bond formed in the shared struggle. In orbit around Earth, the shield network remained active at a low level. Panels glimmered faintly, ready to respond if another danger approached. The wave had tested humanity's technology, courage, and discipline. They had passed. Rylan thought of the future. He knew there would be more challenges, more cosmic forces. That tested civilizations. But he also knew that the lesson of respect, preparation, and cooperation would remain. Earth had shown the NIGMA Empire that strength is not just about ships or weapons, but about knowledge, planning, and the willingness to act together. Dr. Mara looked at the horizon from the command tower. The sky was calm, and the stars shone clearly. She smiled slightly, thinking about how fragile yet resilient life could be. The wave had been a warning, a message from the universe, but it had also been a proof of humanity's spirit. In the quiet moments after the storm, the solar system seemed to breathe again. Humans and NIGMA officers alike reflected on the events and on the new possibilities that had emerged. They had survived, but more importantly, they had learned. The lesson was clear. The universe would always challenge those who underestimated it. But for those who prepared, respected knowledge, and chose cooperation over arrogance, survival was not only possible, but a chance to grow stronger. Months passed since the wave had tested the solar system. The immediate danger was gone, but the lessons it left were permanent. Humans and NIGMA officers continued to work together, repairing ships, studying the wave, and improving technology. The event had created an unexpected bond, built from mutual respect and necessity. On Earth, Dr. Mara led a team of scientists in a new research facility near the equator. This facility was designed to study cosmic threats and improve planetary defenses. The building glimmered in the sunlight, a symbol of human determination and foresight. Mara moved among the engineers and researchers, checking data screens and reading reports. Each screen displayed simulations, power outputs, and shield performance charts. The team had already begun designing upgrades for the next generation of planetary shields. "The universe will not wait for us to be ready," Mara said during a briefing. "We must always anticipate, always learn, and always be prepared. Cooperation has kept us safe so far, but knowledge is our strongest shield." Her words were met with attentive nods. In orbit, human and NIGMA crews continued joint exercises. Ships moved through synchronized drills, practicing maneuvers that had once been considered impossible without full trust. NIGMA officers had grown accustomed to human strategies, and humans had learned the strengths of NIGMA technology. Together, they formed a team that was both efficient and resilient. Rylan walked along the deck of a repaired NIGMA vessel, watching as engineers worked on communication systems. He remembered the panic of the wave's arrival and the fear of losing control. Now, with every repair and every successful test, he felt a growing sense of accomplishment. A NIGMA officer approached him, carrying a small tablet with data. "We have completed the analysis of the shield's response," the officer said. "Your systems performed beyond our expectations. We are learning from your methods." Rylan smiled. "Then we are both stronger now. That is what matters. Strength shared is strength multiplied." On the surface of Earth, new programs were underway to strengthen planetary defenses and prepare for future cosmic events. Civilian volunteers joined educational initiatives, learning about energy management, space observation, and emergency response. Children listened with wide eyes as instructors described how the green arcs of the shield had protected Earth. Communities were also learning the value of cooperation. People discussed scientific discoveries, shared ideas about sustainability, and built small local observatories to study the sky. The wave had reminded everyone that the universe was vast and full of mysteries, but that preparation and collaboration could turn uncertainty into safety. Meanwhile, the NIGMA Empire underwent internal changes. Fleet commanders who had once relied only on raw strength began to value strategy, planning, and shared knowledge. Their ships incorporated lessons learned from human technology, and training programs now emphasized cooperation over competition. Vorin, the NIGMA fleet leader, held a council with senior officers. "We cannot ignore the lessons of the past months," he said. "We have seen the value of preparedness, respect, and teamwork. The humans have taught us that survival is not just about power, but about wisdom. We must build a future together." Orders were issued for a permanent joint task force. Human and NIGMA officers were assigned to work side by side in monitoring the solar system and studying potential threats. Communication lines were strengthened, research projects were shared, and cultural exchanges were encouraged to foster understanding. On Luna Station, Rylon and a human crew were preparing for a new mission. They would travel to the outer reaches of the solar system to study remnants of the wave and gather data for future defense planning. NIGMA engineers joined the team, eager to learn and contribute. Before departure, Rylon looked out at Earth, glowing blue against the dark sky. He thought of the warnings that had been dismissed, of the near disaster, and of the way humanity had stood strong. The memory of fear had transformed into determination and hope. Dr. Mara joined him at the observation deck. "The universe is always testing us," she said softly. "But we have proven that preparation, knowledge, and cooperation can overcome even the greatest challenges." Rylon nodded. "We will carry this lesson forward, not just for Earth, but for all who share this system. Strength and wisdom together can change the future." The small fleet lifted off from Luna Station, moving toward the outer planets with purpose. Ships glided past the Moon, then Mars, and finally into the vast darkness beyond. The stars stretched endlessly, and every crew member understood that they were now guardians of their home system, ready for whatever the universe might send next. Back on Earth, people watched the sky and felt a renewed connection to the cosmos. They knew that threats could appear at any time, but they also knew they were ready. Families, schools, and communities shared stories of courage and cooperation, passing lessons from one generation to the next. In the NIGMA Empire, officers reflected on the events with new perspective. They had once underestimated humans and ignored warnings. Now they had learned that arrogance was dangerous and that respect and preparation were the true measures of strength. As the days turned into weeks, the solar system became a model of collaboration. Humans and NIGMA worked together to explore, protect, and study the stars. They shared discoveries, repaired old mistakes, and prepared for new challenges, knowing that survival depended on unity. Dr. Mara returned to her research. Rylon continued his missions, and Vorin guided his fleet with caution and respect. Each of them understood that the wave had been more than a threat. It had been a message. It had shown the cost of ignoring warnings and the value of working together. The universe remained vast and unpredictable, but humanity had proven that it could stand against danger with courage and intelligence. The NIGMA Empire had learned humility and cooperation. Together, they looked toward the future with hope and determination. In the calm of the solar system, under the endless sky of stars, a new era had begun. One where knowledge, preparation, and unity could turn the unknown from a threat into an opportunity. Earth had sent its warning, and now both humans and NIGMA had answered it. The horizon stretched forward, filled with possibilities, and the guardians of the solar system were ready to meet them.